Endgame time, and joining our panel right now, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, obviously, also running for the Republican nomination. We wanted to squeeze in more candidates. Senator?
Thanks for having us.
Well, what happened? What do you say what happened? I feel like your libertarian support was strong here when the year started.
Well, we still think it is. You know, we have 1,000 precinct chairs out of 1,600. I think that's more than any other candidate has announced. The young people in our Des Moines office, if you get there, there's 100 of them or more making phone calls. They've called 1 million Iowa voters. I think we've called them so much that we know them by name by now. But no, we think we're a lot stronger than the polls represent. Our strength, we think, is with the younger voter, and I've yet to meet a college kid or a kid out of college that's done a presidential poll. The polls are skewed older.
Do you think you and Sanders are fighting for same voter?
In some ways, you know, I mean, he's evinced a little bit of distrust, you know, of the bigger banks. So if we think the biggest bank in the country, the Federal Reserve, really is the culprit for a lot of our woes as far as economic disparity.
Senator, I want to play into your wheelhouse, if I can, for just a moment. What's been disappointing to me on the Republican side is that there's been almost no sophisticated discussion about how we're going to deal with the war in the Middle East. There's a lot of talk about the veterans. That's after they've served. They've come home badly wounded in many cases, psychologically and physically. But there's been no discussion about, in a sophisticated way, about how we're going to deal with this, what the consequences are, and no call for a sacrifice on the people who are at home. We have less than 1% of our population in uniform and in harm's way.
Well, I think the most important thing, if you want to try to get to a point where we do defeat ISIS, it means you have to have a ceasefire in Syria. So for those who are saying let's bomb both sides, let's just call them John McCain, wants to bomb both sides of that war. So does Rubio. They want to bomb Assad and ISIS at the same time. I think that's a real mistake and won't lead to a solution. To those like Hillary Clinton and Rubio and others who say they want to have a no-fly zone over there and shoot down Russian jets. I mean, Christie's bragging about shooting down Russian jets. I think that's a naivete that will lead to more problems and not make the world safer.
Senator, to that point, the neoconservative wing of the party, which I think you could say is represented by the Rubio candidacy, Chris Christie, does it surprise you that they still have so much resonance in a party that is war exhausted, in a country that's war exhausted?
Well, I think it's interesting. Des Moines did a poll probably about a year ago, and they said, do you support more intervention in foreign war like John McCain or less intervention like Rand Paul? And it was actually pretty evenly split. So we think that there are quite a few voters out there who are still war weary. I think there are many who think also, has regime changed worked. I think toppling Hussein made Iran stronger. I think toppling Gaddafi made radical Islam stronger in Libya. So I think there's a large argument, and I think we're actually winning the historical argument that toppling secular dictators in the Middle East has not made us safer, has actually made it more dangerous for us.
Yeah. Jennifer?
Your father got third place in Iowa, 20%. Do you think you can get anywhere close to that? Maybe our poll isn't reading some of your supporters?
Well, the interesting thing about your poll is if you ask in one of the last polls, who did you vote for in 2012? And I think you got like 9 or 10% for my dad, and he got 22%. So you're really only finding half of his voters. I don't think it's on purpose. It's just I don't think your poll is finding them. I think the poll's not finding young people. It's also not finding independent voters that come and go in the Republican primary. And so I think we're going to surprise a lot of people on Monday.
You know, I'm curious about the libertarian aspect of all of this, because when I go to Trump rallies, I see a lot of libertarians there, and I'm just wondering about that crossover appeal and if that's hurt you at all.
You know, I think most libertarians or libertarian-leaning people like myself, we don't want to make the sand glow. We don't want to carpet bomb the Middle East. We understand that if you have indiscriminate bombing over there, you may create more terrorists than you actually kill. So I think our voters are consolidating. I think audit the Fed was a defining moment for Ted Cruz not showing up for that vote. It's going to hurt him with us losing any Liberty voters to him. I think also Ted's sort of wanting to have it both ways, particularly on the NSA. You saw his response in the debate to Rubio. Rubio said, oh, you voted for the NSA reform, you're voting to weaken the NSA, and Ted responded with, oh, no, I want the government to collect 100% of your cell phone records. And it's like the Liberty voters, we cringe when we hear people like Ted Cruz saying they want to collect all of our records. We don't want the government in the business of collecting our phone records.
What do you got to do Monday night that says, I'm going to New Hampshire?
I think we have to be above expectations, and we have to do very, very well. I've said that from the very beginning. You know, we've been sort of pushed out of the news cycle a little bit, if you haven't noticed. And
it happens. It gets pulled. I'm not. Yeah,
there's a lot of candidates out there, yes. But no, we have to exceed expectations, and we have to do very well in Iowa. But you know, we're already moving up. We're 5th in the Des Moines Register poll consistently, but we think we might get twice as much as what's in there, 3 times as much. So we think we could do much better than expected. We think even have a chance of winning.
what happens to the people who don't survive here in Iowa? Where does their vote go when you get to New Hampshire, in your judgment?
You know, I'm not sure exactly what happens. There are going to be 4 or 5 people that, you know, are not going to do very well here. I don't think Christie, Kasich, Fiorina, I don't think they're going to do very well in Iowa. I think they move on because they think they're going to do better in New Hampshire. But I think after Iowa and New Hampshire, there is a reshuffling of the deck.
Well, here's my favorite motto for the week. There's a place called Reagan, a very popular store with a lot of campaign slogans. And this is one of the most popular ones coming out of Iowa. It says, I support the crazy guy.
Whoever that is.
Right, whoever it is.
On each side of
they're
the
not
aisle.
attaching a name to it.
All right.